Guys, welcome to the video. I'm MMA Tizzer, and today we will be doing the best trash talkers in the UFC tier list. I've got fires all around the screen. I'm going to drag and drop them in to where I think they belong in this tier list. S tier is some of the best trash talkers in the game, while F tier is basically the worst trash talkers you can get, the most cringe stuff you can ever say. And obviously a lot of UFC fighters nowadays are very respectful and they rarely talk trash. So they're still going to get a place on the list if they're entertaining and if they're bringing fans in and making it fun to watch or listen to. They just obviously, so think of this as like a best mic skills and best trash talk tier list for some people. And if I could just ask you guys, leave a like on the video if you enjoy it. Subscribe if you're new here so you don't miss any of my future content, and it just helps the channel out loads, so I really appreciate it. And without further ado, let's get right into this tier list. So let's start off with an S tier pick immediately. We're going for Sean Strickland. So, I mean, I don't know if I need to say much about this guy. He's super funny. He's super entertaining. I'm sure he brings a lot of fans in. And this guy literally saved the Adesanya versus Pereira press conference when nothing else was happening. He stepped in, even though I don't even know if he's meant to be at that press conference when they were first planning it. They decided to put him on, and he completely saved it. He was having the crowd in stitches. He had me in stitches when I was watching it live. And honestly, this dude is just so funny. He's got a new podcast out, so I'm sure that's Comedy Gold. So I'm sure I'll be listening to that when I get some spare time. But yeah, Sean Strickland, he is extremely funny. He's probably got some of the best mic skills in the UFC. Really down to earth, funny guy. And I'm sure a lot of Americans especially will really like him. And a lot of Europeans do as well, I'm sure. So yeah, that's why Sean Strickland's there. He's funny. He doesn't really get too disrespectful. He's just pretty honest. But yeah, great mic skills. Fair play. Moving on, we have Paddy the Baddie. I'm going to put Paddy in B. No, I'm going to put him in C. So Paddy is one of them guys where he kind of talks trash but then kind of doesn't really back it up. So his trash talk itself isn't that bad. He's got a few iconic lines like Scousers don't get knocked out after he knocked out Luigi. And he's got a few more. But the problem is he's not really backing it up in the cage. And also he got a lot of fans to hate him after the Jared Gordon fight, which he clearly lost. He said, "Lad, I won that fight." So I just really don't know. Fans are going to start to dislike this guy if he keeps on saying stuff like this and isn't backing it up in the octagon. He was talking a lot of trash about Ilia Topuria. And although some of it is funny, he called him like Mr. Hand Sanitizer Man because he threw a bottle of hand sanitizer at him. It's just a bit of a problem when he isn't backing it up. And it makes him kind of look soft compared to some of the other guys on this list who were talking trash and then went out and did what they said they were going to do. Because that just looks really badass. And Paddy just needs to get in there and actually do it now. So, his trash talk ain't that bad. It can be a little cringe sometimes, and sometimes it just misses the mark completely. But, he has a few one-liners, and he's fairly promotable, so Paddy's going there for now. Moving on, we have Cody Garbrandt. Cody's going in D tier. This guy's just so emotional. He gets so worked up at press conferences. It's just really awful. He almost ended up fighting Sean O'Malley at a press conference when he wasn't even fighting him. He ended up getting knocked out by Kara France a few days later, who was his actual matchup, but he was too busy beefing with Sean O'Malley, who would have absolutely destroyed him as well, by the way, because he was an entire weight class above him as well. He even said he'd fight Sean O'Malley, who was a weight class above him at the time. Why would you do that? You're just obviously going to lose that fight, especially when you've already got chin problems. And yeah, he's got the emotional stability of a child. He gets really upset really easily. He can't handle his emotions whatsoever. And everything he says on the mic is pretty cringe, to be honest. So D tier. Sorry, Cody, but it's cringe. D tier. Moving on, Tony Ferguson. Tony's going in B tier, I think. He doesn't really talk a lot of trash, but he's had a lot of famous one-liners that we have to give him credit for. So obviously, more recently, we've had Dana White privilege. Obviously, when he was talking about Michael Chandler, and it is true, he did kind of coin that term, the Dana White privilege term, and it is true, it is a real thing. So he did identify something true there. And he's had a lot of other funny moments at press conferences. So, for example, he does that thing where he jumps and screams at press conferences, and that always scared people when he used to do that. I know he hasn't really done that recently, but he hasn't really been in many face-offs where he's had the opportunity for that. And he was talking some trash to Beneil Dariush, but then it all got a bit weird. And it kind of fell off because he started talking about why he deliberately was breaking training partners' arms and legs or something. I can't really remember. So he was deliberately hurting his training partners, and he just kind of painted him in a bit of a bad light. And obviously recently he's kind of fell off as well. So it definitely hasn't helped his trash talk because he's not in the greatest position to do it anymore. But considering the past, Tony's in B. Moving on, Khamzat Chimaev. We're putting him in B. I was going to put him in C just because some of his trash talk doesn't really make sense because obviously it's in his second language. But we'll let him off because that he can't really help that, and at least he's trying. But he's had a lot of famous lines, and he has basically done what he said he's going to do in most of his fights. Obviously, a big one is where he fought GM3. He absolutely humiliated him, and there was a lot of trash talk going back and forth there. He handled that well. He looked composed. He didn't get emotional. And he got a lot of good one-liners. They were talking about like grappling and switching belts if he submitted him. And he knocked him out in the first round anyway. But yeah, the only place where it falls a bit flat is he actually kind of annoys the American fans somewhat. So obviously he's losing out on those fans because he actually says things that kind of annoy them. And they don't really like that. And he just needs to work on maybe saying the right things, because sometimes he mispronounces things or says some things wrong that then make it a completely different meaning. I'm not going to go into detail on that, but if you look back, you can see what I'm talking about there. But B tier, but I'm sure if his English improves and he gets a matchup against someone who will talk trash against him, like Kobe Covington, that'll be really fun, and I'm sure he can work his way up the tier list. But for now, comes out in B tier. I think it's fair. Moving on, Leon Edwards. We're putting Leon Edwards in C tier, I think. He's had some good moments, particularly against Usman, but he's also a bit quiet before that. But recently he's really come out of his shell, and he's got a new sense of confidence after that Usman fight. And leading up to the second fight, he was telling Usman he was going to humble him, and obviously the crowd weren't really with him because it was in America. And I know Usman's not a huge favourite. It was kind of centred towards Usman. But he was kind of telling Usman he's going to humble him, and he didn't lie. He was right. He had knocked him out. There was a good few moments in that press conference, and then when they came to London, everyone was on Leon's side. He had a new sense of confidence about him. He was talking trash to Kamaru, and honestly, it would have been really embarrassing if Leon Edwards lost. But I didn't think he was going to lose, and he didn't lose. He won fairly. Well, I know he got a point deducted, but he did win on the scorecards anyway. So fair play to Leon. I think he's actually improving now. He's got more confidence, and he can definitely work his way up this if he gets a favourable matchup who's down to talk trash with him in the future. Maybe Covington, maybe Chimaev, you never know. But basically, new mythical fighter, confident Leon Edwards is a good trash talker. Moving on, we have Sean O'Malley. Sean's going in like the bottom of C tier because he's not really on their level. Well, I don't know, he just kind of got roasted by Peter Yan a few times, and Peter doesn't even speak English, so that was awkward. He was literally getting flamed by the translator, which was just embarrassing, and he literally went, oh yeah, I'll give you that one. So he admitted that he was getting roasted, and it was actually kind of affecting him. But sometimes he's funny. Maybe his more outer press conferences, he's funny. Like, if you look on TikTok and stuff, he's really funny. He's got a lot of funny videos there where he, like, calls out people and he puts, like, faces on training dummies and then will kick them and there'll be fighters and stuff. So it's just kind of petty but funny stuff like that. So that's why he's there. But he could be funnier. He just needs a good matchup who's willing to, like a lot of these guys, who's willing to talk back with him. So that's why he's there for now. Moving on, Kamaru Usman. He's going in D. He's so cringe. Like, he's just so cringe, Like, everything he says, like the taking what from Who line, that just backfired on him. A lot of stuff has backfired on him. He's just really cringing everything he says and does. And then, like, his dancing and just everything about him, really, in that kind of aspect. And, like, when he went, who, like that, and he sounded, then everyone started calling him an owl, and then that was a meme from then on. But yeah, so Usman, just pretty cringe, not very gifted on the mic, and he really forces it, and you can really tell, and that's why it's so hard to watch. Whereas you've got naturals like Sean Strickland and SJ, and that's the difference in it. It's just natural versus completely forced, and you can tell as you look down the list, a lot of these guys are forcing it, particularly Usman and Garbrandt. Anyway, moving on, we have Volk. Volk's going to B tier. I know he doesn't really talk a lot of trash. He's a very respectful guy, but he's funny. He's likable. A lot of UFC fans like him, especially the Aussies, but a lot of people I know like him too. And it's just because he's really down to earth. He's not cocky. He doesn't really say anything out of order. And, even in defeat in the Makhachev fight, he didn't really say anything that he'd regret saying. He didn't say anything too disrespectfully, just obviously said he thought he was going to win, which makes sense. Why wouldn't you think you're going to win a fight? And likable guy. He's got the Aussie slang. He's got a few one-liners like "you're done," and stuff like that. And yeah, good fighter, good trash talk, likable, big YouTube channel. So he's obviously a good personality. So people like this guy. He's got a big channel, does cooking and stuff like that. So you know, fair play to Volk. He's got an audience and people love it clearly. And I'm a fan of Volk, so of course I'm going to put him up there because one of the reasons why I'm a fan of him, not just because he's a good fighter, it's because he's a likable guy and he's good on the mic. So there you go. Moving on, Kobe Covington, he's going in the top of 8 here. This guy brings it at press conferences. He single-handedly sells pay-per-views. This guy literally just has to carry pay-per-views on his back, a bit like Sean Strickland sometimes. The Usman fights, he just made them really intense, really personal, and he sold that fight against Masvidal really well. His trash talk's really good. He finds what people get really sensitive about, and he really gets under their skin and really annoys them. You can tell he was really annoying Masvidal about the Obama phone and stuff like that, and then he had a few shots at Usman saying that his dad's a corrupt pharmacist. So it's stuff like that. That was really getting under Usman's skin as well, and he was calling his dad a jailbird and stuff like that. But anyway, those stuff really annoyed people. He's really good at getting under people's skins, even though he's playing a character. And a lot of people online don't like him and hate him, and some of them just don't realise it's a personality. So they'll buy the pay-per-view to try and see him get knocked out. And to be honest, I know he got knocked out by Usman, but he rarely does get finished nowadays when it's other fighters. So yeah, so they just stay mad and he stays winning and staying rich because they're buying his pay-per-view. So, you know, you love him or hate him, he's good for the sport because he's selling pay-per-views, he's making money, and he's adding a bit of entertainment value to an otherwise boring pay-per-view. So you got to respect him for that because it's a persona at the end of the day. He doesn't actually think like that. Moving on, we've got John Jones. I mean, it depends on what John Jones we're talking about here. Like, I'll put him in B for now, just because of like the old John Jones where he used to be really, really good at trash talking, like really heated trash talk. Like, it wasn't that good, it was just heated. So the main ones I'm talking about are the Daniel Cormier fights. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the clips of them on YouTube. If you haven't, just go and watch them now, they're crazy. That was some of the most crazy trash talk I've ever seen. It was so disrespectful. There was just really, really big threats getting thrown all over the place by the both of them. And obviously, he won those fights, so it looked better for him, and Cormier kind of looked like an idiot after some of the stuff he'd said. But yeah, so old John Jones was a pretty good trash talker. I rate him for that. Those were some of the biggest rivalries in the UFC at that point. But then more recently against Dominic Reyes kind of had him at some points in those press conferences. They were talking about a book, and then he was like, I'm reading a book right now. He's like, you should read it, and he told him the book, and then Dominic was like, I've read it, and then he proved it by saying something that happens in it, like something about the book, because it was like a self-care book or like a mentality book or something like that. And then John was like, oh, okay, fine. And then he was like, oh dear, and that was like one of his lines about like pursuing greatness, and it kind of backfired on him. So like recently he's been a bit weaker, and against Cyril Gane he didn't really talk that much trash, and I don't know whether it's like he didn't know if he was going to win or not in that fight, or just because he was moving up against heavyweights. But to be honest, I mean, how are you going to trash talk Cyril Gane? He's such a likable guy. He's just funny, you know. He threw a few little digs at him, like when he was playing FIFA. He said, look, he's playing FIFA, I'm training. But obviously, Cyril Gane was training. He was just relaxing. But, I mean, he won the fight anyway. So he's staying in B tier. But if this was all Jones, he'd be in A tier, definitely. But just for some of the more weaker trash talkers of the last few years, the last 5 years or so, he's going in B. Moving on, Aljamain Sterling. Oh my god, F tier. I'm sorry guys, but Aljamain is even worse than Usman. He's so cringe. Everything he does is forced. His conference with Henry was probably the most cringe ever, like, created at once. It was so bad. It was like a cringe bomb was getting forged right in front of my eyes in that press conference. I couldn't take it. I had to switch it off. Even though I'm a massive UFC fan, I just couldn't watch that press conference. So cringe. Everything's forced. He's said a lot of things that make him sound really weird in the past. I mean, I'm sure you'll know what video I'm talking about. I don't want to say it on my channel. I might get like the video taken down, but basically, yeah, he mispronounced that. That made him look like a massive idiot online. And everything he does is super forced. F for fail and F for forced in this category here, clearly. Because, oh my god, the most forced guy, all his one-liners are really cringe. And he feels like he's just found them off Google, to be honest. Like, he just feels like he's typed in before really badass things to say in trash talk to someone else. And that's where he's got all his responses from. So it's just terrible. And yeah, just never again. Please never pick up a microphone again. Thank you, Sterling. Moving on. Michael Chandler. we're putting Michael in D tier because this guy's just funny to me. Like, he's genuinely like a meme. He's like the American meme. Like, he tries to be so inspirational, and it just ends up being so cringe. But it's funny. So, like, he's bad at trash talking, but he is entertaining. But not because he wants to be. Like, he's trying to be the motivational guy. You know, the we can't do this guy. You know what I mean? But he just like he's just so cringe, but it's funny. That's why I enjoy watching it. But he's going in D because this guy's definitely never ever felt someone feel like emotional coming into a fight, because all his trash talk completely misses the mark and it's really cringe. But it is insanely funny, and for that reason I might put him in C tier. I don't know. It is really cringe though, so you know it's very cringe, but it is insanely funny. So that's why Michael Chandler is in D tier. Moving on, we have Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz is going in. We'll put him in A tier. Nate Diaz is trash talking. I mean, it hardly makes any sense, but it's hilarious still. You know, he says so many funny things, and they're all clips online. If you see them Conor McGregor ones, like, you know, the touch butt with the dork in the park, that hit really well. When they had that conference, like in a Performance Institute, I think they had like a quick press conference. It was like a bit makeshift. That was hilarious. They were both going back and forth at each other, crazy there, and obviously they had 2 fights. He had a lot of stuff to say about Jorge Masvidal as well, and he's just really funny. He interacts with the crowd a lot. Sometimes he does slap them, but you know, he answers their questions and he'll get into arguments with them and stuff. I mean, I'm sure we've all seen that vegan one, but yeah, this guy's just funny. He has a few good one-liners, and he just seems like he's not listening when the press conference is going, which makes it even funnier. But then he comes out with funny stuff. So, yeah, that's why he's there.Moving on, Charles Oliveira. He's going in A tier because I'm giving this guy credit, because even though he speaks a different language, you still kind of get the vibe he's wanting to create through the translator, and that's in part thanks to the translator. So I guess we should put him in A tier as well. But considering he doesn't even speak English, his trash talk is insane. Obviously, he's got that. He doesn't really go after his opponents as much. He just has subtle digs, but obviously he's got like the illuminated by God line. He's got the champion's has a name, and his name is Charles Oliveira. So that's another good line, and he has a lot of good stuff. And he's got huge fans. He's got obviously a massive cult following in Brazil. A lot of the Americans like him. A lot of the Europeans like him. This guy's just really likable. He's liked all over the world. And I mean, for good reason, to be honest. I like him. I'm a fan of Charles Oliveira, and he just completely surprises me every fight just by doing something new. And you know, he's good on the mic. And also, after he beat Beneil Dariush at the weekend, he showed that he's been learning English. So you never know, we might have a new mythical English Oliveira fighter. That'll be interesting. I'm looking forward to that. If he learns English, this guy can be an S tier, okay? Because he's likable as well. Because Kobe's hated by a lot, but he's likable, and he's still entertaining, kind of like Sean. So if Charles Oliveira learns English and he learns it well, he can be an S tier soon enough. And the final person on the tier list is, I mean, you've probably been expecting it. It's Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor is the king of UFC trash talk. He kind of revived it. I mean, I don't know what else I need to say, but you know, he basically carried trash talk when no one else would. He used to be super witty, super funny, super charismatic. This guy, literally, he had such a big following in America, obviously such a big one in Ireland, in Europe. He was the UFC superstar for a reason, and part of the reason was his trash talk. And another reason he's an S tier, is not only because he was funny and entertaining, is because his trash talk helped him win fights, as crazy as it sounds. Like, if you look at that fight with Dustin Poirier, he was so worked up and so angry, and you could just tell the entire fight week he was so angry. He would just needed to let all his emotions out, and you could really tell it was affecting him in the cage. And honestly, I'm not surprised he got knocked out, because he just definitely wasn't fighting like he should have been trained to. He was just fighting with pure emotion, and it ended up with him getting caught. And that's how he won a lot of his fights. And it's probably a reason why he struggled against Nate Diaz so much, because Nate Diaz doesn't buy into that. And Nate Diaz acknowledged that Conor McGregor does this, because he said, you've already beaten all the guys you can trash talk before you even step in the cage. And it's true. I mean, look at Jose Aldo. He was really, really annoyed by McGregor. If you looked at the translations of what he was saying to his team and stuff and the media, he was just saying how annoying McGregor is. So if he's been annoying, it was working. and it clearly did, because Jose Aldo's fist was trembling at the face-off, and he did notice that, and he ended up throwing that hook immediately and getting countered and then KO'd. So you can say it also helped him win the belt at featherweight. So that's why Conor McGregor's there. Recently, admittedly, yeah, he has been a bit cringe. He kind of got destroyed by Dustin Poirier at the press conference. He looked really off. He said a lot of things that weren't that funny, to be honest, and were just a bit cringe. And if that was just a normal fighter, he would have been in like C or D tier. But because of prime McGregor trash talk, we are putting him in S. He basically changed the game. He had the best trash talk in the game, and he won fights with his trash talk alone. So yeah, that is the video, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the tier list. Leave the like, subscribe, and turn notifications on so you don't miss any of my future uploads. And it just really helps the channel out as well. Comment down below who you think I should add to this list, because obviously I can't fit everyone in, just time constraints. So yeah, and thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.